For 2,000 years, a story has been told and retold down through the generations. A strange story involving ancient prophecies, angelic messages, a birth in unexpected quarters, and some mysterious men who came from far away in the east, who found the newborn child by following a very oddly behaving star. In the book of Matthew, chapter 2, it says, "After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, 'Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him.'" In recent years, some well-meaning people have sought to explain this age-old tale of the Star of Bethlehem in terms of modern astronomical knowledge. One popular theory ascribes the Bethlehem star to a conjunction of the planets Jupiter and Venus, two of the wandering stars, as the ancients called them, in order to try and explain how the text describes the stars first leading them to Jerusalem, and then later turning and leading them south to Bethlehem. The theory asserts that the reason the star appeared to stop over Bethlehem was because of the retrograde motion of the planetary body. Many similar theories propose other various conjunctions of Jupiter, Venus, the star Regulus, and even the moon. Perhaps at a glance this sounds logical, but I would like to propose that upon a closer examination of this famous Bible story, we can see that this Copernican-based theory requires both a great deal of speculative reaching on the astronomical side, as well as a very loose interpretation of the biblical text itself. First, the proponents of this theory themselves admit that the sighting of Jupiter would have been a regular event, and even though the conjunction with Venus or Regulus or anything else would have been a much rarer occurrence, it's hard to comprehend how the star could have been this Jupiter-Venus conjunction, if the Magi claimed to have recognized the star as being unique from the first moment they saw it rise in the east. The conjunction would have been for a fairly short duration, a few days or weeks, maybe. Certainly not long enough to last the entire trip from the Magi's point of origin in the east, all the way to Jerusalem, and then on to Bethlehem. Never mind that the scripture specifically talks about a star, singular, and it seems almost insulting for us to imagine that ancient peoples who spent their whole lives studying the stars wouldn't be able to articulate the difference between a single solitary star and the conjunction of multiple stars, which they would have undoubtedly been familiar with as well. Not only this, but the notion that the retrograde motion of the planetary bodies, such as Jupiter, could be the explanation for how a star could stop over Bethlehem, really doesn't seem to do justice to what we actually read in Matthew. As we read on, it says, "Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, 'Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him.' After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over a place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child was with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route." Now this is what I find most problematic about this whole story, in terms of trying to explain it via modern Copernican astronomy. Because really, how could any star, being millions of miles away out in space, regardless of any conceivable motion it was making, actually point to such a pinpoint location on the surface of the Earth? Could the point at which a planet appears to stop and change direction due to retrograde motion really be enough precise data to direct travelers to an exact location? Could even a star like Polaris, whose position is constantly fixed, actually lead a traveler to within a few feet of the exact North Pole on the ground? Sure, you could follow it until it was roughly directly overhead, but this would still be insufficient to lead one to a location as specific as a particular house within an entire town. Later in Matthew chapter 2, it says, "When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi." So from this we can stop and extrapolate that from the time the Magi first saw the star, to the time right after they found Jesus, and then everyone escaped Herod, we are talking about some kind of stellar phenomenon which took place over the course of roughly 2 years. It somehow remained fixed over Jerusalem for enough months that the Magi were able to load up for the long journey to Jerusalem, and then travel all the way to Jerusalem, after which it seems to have reappeared over Bethlehem, directly south, towards which the Magi continued to follow this particular star until it led to an exact address. To me, this story just does not make any sense at all when attempting to be explained by Copernican astronomy. But it actually makes a lot of sense if given a second look through a biblical enclosed world cosmology. If the stars are not massive balls of burning gas millions of light years away, but rather something else, something much closer, much more intimately connected to the spiritual realities of the created order, the luminaries, if you will, well, then suddenly this rather odd story from 2,000 years ago suddenly doesn't seem nearly as problematic or difficult to explain. Suddenly we can begin to realize that the way in which we've so often seen this nativity story depicted, where the star over the manger scene is represented as an angel, is really the only interpretation that has ever made any real sense. But even more amazing than pondering the Star of Bethlehem through the lens of a flat, enclosed world, where the heavenlies are possibly so much nearer than we ever first imagined, is pondering the purpose of this story overall. The message, which a moving, seemingly sentient star was assigned to point towards and announce. The birth of this person, this king, whom armies of angels celebrated with song in shepherds' fields. This story is more than just a story. It is true. It is part of history. It really happened. And just like the star pointed these men from the east to the true king, the Creator himself is still using his great handiwork, the heavens and the earth, to point people back to him, back to his Son, back to the truth. He knows you. He's calling you by name. He has been with you every day of your life. He knows every moment, every heartache, every joy, every pain. He has been leading you through all of it, towards the point where you might finally recognize that the thing which your soul has been longing for, through it all, has been Him. Will you follow the starlight? Will you dare to wonder? Will you listen to the signs? Will you hear Him calling you? Will you worship the King? The God of everything, the Creator of all that has ever been and ever will be, loves you more than you can possibly comprehend. There is no greater truth in the world to discover, and I pray that if you have somehow come to watch this, that you will discover it too.